So we continue our Psalm reflections on word crumbs. Today is the 18th of September. If you're still with me, congratulations. We can continue in this journey of learning how to appreciate the Psalms and bringing concrete implications on our lives. You know, the monks of the early centuries in the Christian church used to have mantras. So mantras are not only typical of other religions. If you've heard of the Desert Fathers, they used to have mantras, things that they repeat in order to keep their mind occupied with things that are worth occupying it with. Because so many things come to our minds, and it's necessary for our life to think about different things. But there are moments when our minds are just empty or thinking things that are not worth it. So the mantra is a way of spirituality, if you like, to bring us to what is essential, to the way we want to live our day, each day with more value in that sense. So today we are taking Psalm 100 from verse 1 to 5. And the response is, "Come with joy into the presence of the Lord. Come with joy into the presence of the Lord." And I'd just like to read the psalm together with you, and then we can explain it a bit. Sing joyfully to the Lord, all you lands. Serve the Lord with gladness. Come before him with joyful song. So come with joy into the presence of the Lord. Know that the Lord is God. He made us, his we are. His people, the flock he tends. Come with joy into the presence of the Lord. Enter his gates with thanksgiving, his courts with praise. Give thanks to him, bless his name. Come with joy into the presence of the Lord. For he is good, the Lord, whose kindness endures forever, and his faithfulness to all generations. So come with joy into the presence of the Lord. So come with joy into the presence of the Lord. And if you're reading the psalm by yourself, that's why we always encourage using the Bible. You might notice that there are some phrases that you'd like to stay with, and that's fine. The only purpose of these videos are for us to have a kind of explanation if it's necessary, or a kind of introduction. So if you find that a certain phrase strikes you and you would like to deepen more on it, please go ahead. Now, what I'm going to do is to kind of summarize this psalm in a different way, all right? In a more practical, palatable way, if you like, that we can use it. So the invitation today is come with joy into the presence of the Lord. And the invitation, if you like, in summary, is to come into the presence of God, but with joy, So how do you do that? So the question would be, what does it mean to enter the presence of the Lord? If somebody says come, it means you're not there. So you have to come. So that sometimes you're living outside the presence of God. And the psalmist invites us to live our daily life within the presence of God, to be in the presence of God. I'm sure you've heard this very simple prayer. Let us place ourselves in the presence of God. And that is a very characteristic way that we as Christians are invited to live. Now, again, what does it mean to enter into the presence of God? Is it a place? Is the presence of God a place that we need to step in since we're outside? Or is there a door through which we can enter? Something practical that I can practice the psalm with. Lord, how do I enter your presence with joy? And traditionally, I just like to speak of a traditional way the church teaches us to enter into God's presence. I would say that there are 4 doors, and you can choose any of them, and you can do all of them, all right? And these 4 doors are represented by 4 letters called ACTS, or ACTS, all right? ACTS, and I'll just explain them one by one. but not in order. All right, just to make things a bit more interesting. One of the main doors to enter into God's presence is thanksgiving. T, letter T. Thanksgiving. When you stop and you say, Lord, thank you. Thank you for the gift of life. Thank you because I am alive. Thank you that I have health. Imperfect as it may be, I am quite healthy to live this day. Thank you because I have faith. Remember the works, the great works of God. Thank you for my culture of who I am. Thank you also for what faith has done to me. So if you just stop and you spend a bit of time thanking God for all the blessings, all the graces that you have just today, you would definitely enter that presence of God with joy. But directly thank Him personally. Lord, I thank you for this, that. As the expression says, count your blessings and you will realize how real the presence of God is. So that is the first T, thanksgiving. And as I said, there are many things we can take for granted and we can thank God for. Thank God for family. Thank God for people around you. Thank God, even they're irritating, at least you have someone. You're not alone. Thank God for work. How many people don't have work today? And if you have it, it could be, because of your own efforts, you look for the means, but also there's so many people like you are talented. Maybe you might not believe it, as talented as you are, as smart as you are, but they don't have work. So how many things we need to thank God for? So T. Now the second letter I like to touch on is A in the Acts, no? Acclamation. So if T stands for thanksgiving, A stands for acclamation. To acclaim God, to praise Him. Remember we were talking about that. To praise God, to bless God for who He is. Not just for what He does for you, but who He is. And this is so important, to enter God's presence. The second door for me. Just this simple prayer. God, you are so good. If you really say that with your heart and you mean it and you really believe it, in your own life, and you meditate it in your life, God, you are so good. That already brings you into God's presence. Or for those who have prayed even more, and maybe have a little more experience in prayer, God, you are my shepherd. God, you take care of me. God, you are love. You are forgiveness. God, you are a friend. So we can qualify. The key I would say here are the words, you are. When you tell God, you are, to acclaim Him for who He is. That brings us into a different awareness of the presence of God. Perhaps as a friend, perhaps as a shepherd, perhaps as love, perhaps as so many things depending on who we qualify God to be. Lord, you are. Acclaim Him. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, that's all you need. Acclaim Him for who He is, and you enter into God's presence. So that's already 2 doors, right? Thanksgiving and acclamation. Now there's a third door that we might be more familiar with, but we don't really appreciate nowadays in our modern times, and that is confession. Confession. C, letter C. That is another door to enter into God's presence. Confession is to humbly recognize our imperfections. Confession means to see that, it's humility. It's an act of humility to realize that I am humus. Humility comes from the root word humus, which is Latin for soil. I'm just soil. I'm just dust. And I'm very fragile and I'm very vulnerable. And therefore, when I react in weakness, when I say things I know I shouldn't say to someone, when I treat somebody badly who deserves something more, or even for somebody who doesn't deserve it, and I treat that person badly, something in our conscience tells us the need to confess my humus, my humble state and my weakness. And that somehow introduces us also into the presence of God. Lord, I'm sorry. Lord, I'm sorry. Even if there's somebody you love and you say that to the person, I'm sorry, that brings you into a different awareness of the presence of that person, of how much you love that person, how much the person matters to you, and also how that relationship matters. So, confession, I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. So, this is the third door, C. So, we have T, A, C. And of course, in Acts, there is still a letter S, the fourth door. The fourth door, letter S, means supplication. It's supplication, meaning asking for our needs, making petitions to God, requests to Him, if you like, whether it's for ourselves or whether it is for others, to present them to God because we believe that God cares. When we make petitions or supplications, we are entering into a presence not of, you wouldn't ask something from someone if you didn't really think, maybe you're not 100% sure, but at least you have a certain percentage of awareness that that person would somehow give what you ask to you if you really need it. So when we make supplications, it's not bad. Sometimes you say we keep asking God for things, but it's okay. The church teaches us that it's okay to ask God for our needs, because once again, it introduces us to who we are. We are creatures, we are limited, we are just human, and we are independent. We are not independent of others or from God. So supplication reconnects us to our God. Which father or mother amongst you would not be happy if your child recognizes their needs and humbly comes to you to ask, Mom, Dad, help me? What would you do? Except for help them, right? So supplication. So just to summarize it then, so these are the four doors to come into the presence of the Lord with joy, with a certain fruit, not just a neutral presence, but with a joyful presence. Acts, and I repeat them again. Acts. A for acclamation, C for confession, T for thanksgiving, and S for supplication. So you can take it in any order you like. You don't have to take all of them. Sometimes we like one more than the other. Like myself, I like the letter T. That's why I started with T. But somehow in every moment of our lives, we're going to lead all four of them. And this is what this psalm teaches us today. How to enter into God's presence. Because if you think about it, why is it we can come into God's presence with acts? Because all four of them make us realize that we are just human. All four of them. When we acclaim God for who He is, when we confess for how we are sometimes, when we thank God for the gifts we receive and we didn't work for it sometimes or many times, when we ask God in supplication for things we need, we realize that we're just human. And our faith as Christians is not to make us less human, but rather to make us more human in the way we treat ourselves, in the way we treat others, and in the way that we live our lives and try to enjoy it with our God who created us as human beings in His image and likeness.